All right, here we go. Unfiltered. As a teacher, so I teach. I taught at the Naval Academy. I taught at the University of Kentucky. I was a candidate for office. I'm now the co-host of this show. I do a lot of talking in my professional life. In fact, when I was a fighter pilot and I was in the military, I remember my kid asking me one time, my oldest, who was old enough to remember me being in the military, he said, "Mom, you were once really cool, and your job was really cool, and now all you do is talk." And I'm like, yeah, I don't have a comeback to that. But in that talking in that professional life, I've tried to be honest, and I think it's a responsibility that I take seriously, right? And to no one's surprise, though, uh, House Republicans and Donald Trump do not share this sense of responsibility, right? And the lengths Trump will go right now to not talk about the Epstein files and the Epstein case is just extraordinary. The Wall Street Journal came out last week with a letter that said that Trump gave Epstein a birthday card. He don't want to talk about that. Now the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Trump is indeed in the Epstein files. And in order to not just make it go away, the House of Representatives, they just went on vacation. What do you make of that?
Look, I think this is going to be the real test of whether MAGA and Trumpism is indeed a cult or if there is any shred of independent thought left. I thought it would be January 6th. I thought that is what would break the fever. The problem is that the defenders of MAGA and Trump and of January 6th had a foil. They had the ability to like point to the other side and say it was either agitators or, I mean, their explanations were all over the map, right? But when it comes to Epstein, the call is coming from inside the House. This is a conspiracy and a scandal that the right has been amplifying for a very long time, even before Epstein's death. This is something that they have manufactured, that their most ardent influencers and supporters created and continue to amplify. It is very different than any of the other vulnerabilities that Trump has had to deal with, in that he has to attack his own people to get out of this. And I guess it's a test of how deeply they believe in this stuff. In my mind, there's almost nothing you could believe in more fervently and deeply than protecting kids, right? So I
Right.
want to believe that even as conspiracy oriented as the other side is, that there is a good faith attempt by some people to like live up to the values of defending kids. If they actually believe what they were selling when they were amplifying this whole Epstein thing, then they got to see it through. They have to stay
Well,
the course. So
I don't
this will
think
be
they
the
believe it.
test.
I don't think
You
that
don't think
they
believe
don't
it?
care about kids. That's just my personal belief. But here's the thing: I always thought the Epstein stuff was a big fat nothing burger. Okay, I kind of thought that like 2 or 3 weeks ago. If you had asked me, "What's this all about?" This is a big deal. I would have said, whatever." You know what? Donald Trump is like changing my mind. I actually think it's a big deal now. Why? Because he's running away with it and paranoid in such a way that it makes me think, well, is there something big here? Because I feel like you got to release the files now because there's either something big or it's a nothing burger. But
Well,
I mean, so which one is it? It appears to be there's something big if you're not releasing the files, right?
Well, and the other big deal is the fact that they have been demanding this for 10 years, and suddenly they pivot on a dime. Suddenly they're sending their fixer to Ghislaine Maxwell's prison cell to talk her into something, who knows what. That to me that's the smoke, right? I I don't know that I suspect there probably isn't some deep state massive pedophile conspiracy with tunnels under Washington, D.C., and a basement at Comet Pizza that doesn't actually exist. That's all the crazy conspiracy stuff, right? But the fact that they have been talking about this for a decade and turn on a dime. That to me demands an explanation. And release the files. What are you afraid of?
The other piece of this, which is more recent, is Donald Trump and Tulsi Gabbard,
Oh God,
the director of national intelligence, accusing former President Obama of treason. Treason. Okay, I don't throw around that word lightly, but apparently they do. For this intelligence report that Russia meddled in the 2016 election. And Russia did meddle in the 2016 election. And Marco Rubio's
I was just about to pull up the quote. Yep.
Yeah, said so. And so to come out now as Tulsi Gabbard, who was really hired to basically lie for Donald Trump as director of national intelligence, and say that, I just think is crazy. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, my fear is that it might work. He has gotten away with this every time. The whataboutism and the changing of the subject. Look, we have to talk about it. But the fact that we're talking about it, we literally moved on from Epstein to talk about Obama's, fake treason charge. I mean, that's my fear, right? He is so good at finding the one thing or the handful of issues that can distract us from the thing he's most afraid of. Now, I think this is a miscalculation as well. I really do. One, because I do believe that there are members of the Trump base who are not going to let the Epstein thing go because they believe it in their hearts. I'm not talking about the Steve Bannons and the Charlie Kirks, right? I'm talking about the people who live and breathe conspiracy theories and have made this a part of their identity for the last decade. How do they just let this go when they've been telling themselves and their friends and their neighbors and their families that kids are being hurt? But second, using this charge of treason against Obama that is going to fall apart or that doesn't exist in the first place. Now you've created another expectation that Obama is going to be led away in handcuffs.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, yeah, I'll look this up just to be sure, but I think Trump actually shared an AI image of Obama being handcuffed and dragged away. He has created this expectation that once again will disappoint his followers. So I think he's losing a step. Most people don't disagree with that, just watching him talk and the size of his ankles, right? But I think his strategic moves are not quite as deft as they were just a few years ago.
And you try to like sit there and connect the dots with these folks, and you're like, okay, so you're trying to say that Obama made up a false allegation that the Russians interfere with the election in order to try to get Hillary Clinton elected, but she wasn't elected. I mean, it doesn't jive. And oh, by the way, if you go back to those years, what we know about it, which wasn't reported enough, was that the intelligence community knew that Russia was meddling in our election, and it was classified at the time. And Obama had in his team were thinking about releasing that information during the election, like telling the American public, hey, Russia's doing these types of things. But guess what happened? He went to the Senate leader, the Republican leader at the time. Who was that? Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
And he wanted to get a bipartisan, hey, let's release this information to the American public. Let the American public know what's going on. Okay. And do it in a bipartisan way. Tell the truth in a bipartisan way so that it doesn't look like it's a partisan thing. And what did Mitch McConnell do? He said, no, I'm not going to back that statement. I'm not going to have a joint statement and release this information. And therefore, Obama was like, hey, well, if I release it, it's going to look like I'm trying to tip the scales here. And so, I mean, it's almost, if you really pull the string on it, it was almost the opposite of what Tulsi Gabbard is alleging here. But I know that's in the weeds.
Yeah. I hope you couldn't hear the keyboard clacking too loudly, but I found the Rubio quote, right? We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling. they can't have it both ways. They can't
Yeah.
accuse Obama of treason while one of the heir apparents for the presidency is saying exactly the same thing. Is just stating the evidence. And it's one thing to see an American president leverage his media contacts or use powerful friends in the private sector to spread lies, but to use the IC, the
Yeah.
intelligence community, from the top down, from the director of national intelligence, that should really scare us, because to me, it sets off a couple of flares. First of all, what are they not focusing on if they're focusing
Mhm.
on this?
Mhm.
Second of all, what are the long-term implications of
Yeah.
undermining the ethics and the truth-telling ability of a community and institution that is supposed to keep us safe and give the executive branch the best information, well, all branches, but give the president the best information possible to make decisions to protect Americans.
Yeah.
That mission is now subservient to protecting the president, not protecting America.